I'll also record in the background.
Okay. Right, so I've got this avatar here. Oh, hi everyone. Anyway, I'm Simon, or Topgunsi from New Zealand. This is one that I've been working on this week, and we'll use this as sort of our example one this week for our blend shapes. So it's kind of a little bit of a follow-on from what you did last week, Rick, with the basics of skinning and weight painting and that. This one's a little bit more complicated, obviously, with the different shapes and that. Weight painting is something that's quite takes a lot of time to get used to, like to get it refined so that when you bend things, it's you're not getting distortion as such. The easiest way to start doing this is my method that I used was using like my dinosaur skeletons from my bone museum. So I had the individual bones as such, then you're just painting them a solid red, and you sort of get to understand how they all interact with each other. But for making avatars in motion as such for the Unity and then VR chat workflow, I was having a lot of trouble at the start with them coming into medium and their legs being like crossed around the other way. And what it is that if you don't have the correct naming to the bones, which is very important in this, they won't align correctly. So I'll just bring it up again. So when you start, you have the option here to do auto rig, and I'll just apply this, and it will just throw in an auto a humanoid skeleton. And this one comes with already named bones. I must have had a glitch here. Hang on, I think I've just lost Masterpiece there. I'll just restart it. It just crashed on me. Yeah, it does happen occasionally. Okay, I'll get that going again. But you can either manually name the bones in Masterpiece, or if you select the auto rig, it'll quite often look all messed up to start with, but it'll have all the correct bones there. So what you can do is then you just go to the move rig and just click on them, see what the name is, and then you can just drag them onto the parts that correlate with, you know, the part of the armature that you've got. Where are we? Just need to start the stream again. Masterpiece, go live. Everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I'll load back in again. And so basically what happens is if you don't name...
We've lost Masterpiece in the background.
Oh, it's just because I might be just loading the file, so I think it kind of freezes it initially while it's doing that. It must use up too much memory or something.
Let's see.
This is not exactly... I wouldn't call this file that I've been working on a highly optimized one. It was more one I've been experimenting with to see like just more complex models and how they work. Obviously for my dinosaur museum that I've been building, I need to work out ways of moving with higher poly models, but then trying to reduce them and make them as optimized as possible. So here we go. Is it back now?
Yeah.
Okay. So like if I go to rig and then go to bone naming, if I click on this bone here, this is an auto rig when I rigged this one. So I used the auto rig function and it threw out the skeleton and I just positioned it. So this is called the right forearm, and this one is the bottom box here is the one that you've got to make sure. You can do this manually, but you'll need all of these in here set to the correct thing, because if you don't have anything in there, like because you can leave it blank, when you go to Unity, it doesn't know which way round the armature's facing, and it can lead to all sorts of issues, which pretty much the only way to fix it is to come back to motion and align them properly with using the correct ordering. So this one's already done, and then they're all, like you can see, the hands, the fingers aren't such a problem because you can have avatars with 3 fingers or 4 fingers or no fingers if you want. And then I've obviously added extra bones here and rigged them as that these ones will be like what you talked about, Rick, last week. I've just added these solely for the purpose of putting dynamic component to them in Unity, so that it's got a bit more fluidity to the model when it walks around. As far as rigging it for talking and mouth movements, I've just gone for the simplest option with this one, which is just a simple bone here. I'll go to the skinning one, so that it's just moving just the jaw. But this is where, if you want to get more complex, you can use the blend shape. So when you go to the blend shape tab, you can add blend shapes. So at the moment, I don't know if we've got any here. So we'll add one, and we'll edit it. So we want to make it so his eyes blink here. So we'll edit this. So I've actually already rigged his eye movement by the look of it on this one. So if I click apply, and then it flicks, so I'll just put them out here so you can see. And so when you set this up in Unity, then he'll do the old blink. But for applying them, we'll add a new one, because you can add a movement as such with blend shapes. Like when you get him to, or when the eye movement looks down or up, you can have other parts of the body interact with it that aren't actually rigged to the armature. So if we go, we'll add another blend shape here. So when he's blinking, we could have it so that the eyebrows come down a little bit, and and you can smooth stuff out by using the smoothing tool if it looks too what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Harsh, where you've pulled the mesh from. And you can use the mirror function, and that will obviously mirror it across as you're doing it. And then you click apply, and then it will revert back. So this is the trick when you're in Unity. If you haven't named, because there's no way of naming these as such, it'll just be blend shape 1, blend shape 2, which is why if you're going to have a lot of blend shapes rigged to your avatar, it'd pay just to have a pen and paper at this stage until Masterpiece includes the option to add a name. So like if you were to put a lot of blend shapes in for, we'll do another one, for say when he goes to say or smirk or something, you might want to have it so the mouth here comes down on the side a little bit. It's not wanting to do it here at the moment. Oh, I haven't added a blend shape there. But so you can add all sorts of complex movements by using the blend shape feature. It's just a matter of playing around with it really and seeing what works for you. Like this is probably a little bit complex for a blend shape for the mouth because it's more of an animal with a jaw. But it's like with the looking around in that, like I've actually set this one up. I'll just go back to the skin one. I've set this one up so I've got the eyebrows moving when I've used the eye look, which is a separate thing again, because what I've rigged is the an armature for the eyeball itself, and then I've just slightly skinned the eyelid and a little bit of the eyebrows so that it looks like it's just flexing a little bit. But you can use blend shapes for that as well. And for rigging eyes, you really want to have like a perfect sphere on a separate layer to the main body of the avatar. So like as you can see in this one, we're on skin. And if I click on that, see I've set that as a solid red weight painted. So this only bone that affects this eye is the one in the center. So that the trick with these to get it, you want to get the armature bone as close to the center of the sphere as possible, so that when you move it, it's almost rotating on its center axis, which makes it so much easier in Unity then to give them the correct movements for looking up, down and left and right as such. And you will have to tie these to the head, otherwise if for example if this wasn't linked to the head armature, then the eyeball would stay there when you move the body away, which is a bit of an awkward look when you've got an avatar. What else can I cover? With the part of the main part of the rigging, when you're doing it, you'll see these little green lines. This shows you if you move that bone, those ones will stay with it. So sometimes when you're rigging, you'll end up with some lines going back to the main root bone or the starting point, and that's where they'll auto-link if you haven't linked them to anything else. Whereas if you pull on the thumbstick, we'll go to the rigging tab, you pull back on the thumbstick when you've got there, and you can drag a line to wherever you want. So I can link that one to that one now. And now if I go to the skinning tab, if I move this, it should, well, this one's probably a bit far away, but see, it's actually affecting that now because it's connected to that one. And so what you do is, if you want to make sure, if because occasionally it can happen, you can accidentally pull a thumbstick and it can move off what you're trying to get it to do. So what you can do is you go back, click on it with your pull back on your thumbstick. This one's not wanting to do it at the moment. My Oculus Touch controller is a little bit worn on the thumbsticks. It does help to be in rigging mode. Okay, so that's connected back there now. And the other thing that's probably is crucial when it comes to making avatars for VR chat with this, which is quite an important one, that it can make the difference between an avatar looking good or whether there's little spiking vertices everywhere, is using this feature under the skin tab called Show Incomplete Skinning. So if you click this, like this one has, oh hang on, I'll click on that. It's not wanting to show it here, but what it will do is, if you haven't got anything fully weight painted, hang on, now that'll work now. This one's completely done because see, there's no red at all showing, because what happens is, I'll just, for an example, if I click on this one and I'll subtract a big bit there, and then we'll go back to, see now it's showing that that's not weight painted, so that when it moves, it's going to warp. But this is the key factor in this, is if you have even just the slightest little dot, we'll just go back and paint that back up again. The slightest, we'll see if we've got any little dots there. There's one little dot there. It's not big, but something like that, even just one or two vertices, if you've just missed one vertice, what happens when you take it to Unity is that vertice will then get automatically attached to the start bone, and so this can be quite major when you've got, say, if you even just had something like on the ear. If I go up there, and I'll do one on the ear. So if I go to the skinning, and I'll just take a little bit off, subtract just a little bit there, maybe a little bit up there, and we'll just check that. Yeah, it's quite a chunk there. So now what happens in Unity is, if you don't have that, it probably won't be quite as bad as this, because it will then be attached to that. But if I click on this, and then I'll paint those, because this is where they will ultimately be attached to, and this is how Unity will do it. So when you walk around, you're going to have pieces coming out all over the place. So that's where this feature, Show Incomplete Skinning, is quite a valuable tool. Just before you exit or export it, it's a good idea to go through and check to make sure that every patch of red that's left has been assigned to the closest part of the armature next to it. Otherwise, Unity will just it'll just see, oh, you've got little dots here and everywhere. It'll just automatically attach them to that one, which will then lead to problems. It's not so bad on ones in the vicinity of that area, but further away, it definitely makes it a lot more of an issue. Has anyone got any questions or at this point?
Yeah, I'd love to ask you, initially when you were starting, you did, and the auto rig feature, did it spit out the entire mesh or just the humanoid rig mesh?
It just spits out a humanoid mesh. So what happens, like with this, like it I don't know how quite it works, but it obviously this is quite an unusual shaped avatar. So it basically spat out roughly a humanoid shape, but it wasn't in any way really lined up with the shape of it. I think one hand might have been, but then the other hand, the arm was up in the air. But that's not a problem, but because it actually saves a bit of time when it comes to the bone naming as such, because they're already auto-named.
Got you. And say you had done like custom dynamic bones, like your ears, and now you hit auto reskin. Is it going to discard your ears, or is it going to just discard the humanoid?
Oh, it will rig when you do the auto skin. I just did it on the very the lowest setting one, because I just wanted a very light skin of it. so then I could spend the time. So these were, I think, it did auto skin a lot of this to the closest armature, but then there was issues like the shoulder had auto rigged part of the cheek and things like that, just because this is a little bit more complex, I suppose, than your standard more oval shaped humanoid head. But that's just a matter of, that's why I quite often just do the auto skin on the lowest function, which basically maps mostly everything, and then it's just going through and taking off areas where it's affected, where you don't want it to affect, and then just adding it to ones you want affected. But it is a little bit of a time consuming process. That just the actual initial skinning of it is fairly fast with this, because you can use the auto skin, and then, but it's the refinement. So you want to keep moving it around and seeing how it affects each part of it, which is why I really like using this one for it, because you can do the whole thing in real time. You can actually literally just grab the arm and then pull it out of the way and go, oh, that's pulling over there, and then you can just start weight painting that. Like, there's a little bit here I just noticed on here. You'll see the vertices are just not quite, they're pulling there a little bit. So if I get smoothing on, just smooth that a little bit more, it's just fix that. And it's just a constant adjustment thing. Like, obviously, I don't think in VR chat, I don't think his head can turn that far. So things like that, I'm not too worried about. It's where I more go for where you're generally going to be looking, and where the general avatar movement's going to be in VR chat itself. I mean, I don't think in real life my neck will turn that far. It'd probably look like that too. Any more questions? I sort of can, that way I can cover areas that anyone's actually more interested in seeing. The mouth movement one is because if you've rigged this and set it as a jaw in Unity, there is the feature you can just do auto detect, and if you've got one set as a jaw, it should automatically detect it. So, I mean, you can manually make sure, which is another reason why the naming's quite important. We'll just go back to that again. Obviously, if you're adding all these separate bones that aren't part of the standard humanoid structure, it's good to give them a name, so that when you are adding your components, it's not just bone A or bone 25, so you have no idea where you're up to. It's definitely helpful. Like, I've got my own sort of code as such that I know when I'm in Unity that I can just go straight to it.
Have you had any issues? So say you've rigged your avatar, you've put everything in, then you send it to Unity.
Yep.
If you want to do a tweak now to the file and you overwrite the Unity file, does that work fine for you, or does that bomb out the mesh?
You mean if I adjusted the rig in here as such again, and then re-imported it back to Unity?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just replacing the.
I haven't tried directly replacing it. If I've made any changes before, it's been quite drastic ones. So what I've done is just completely replaced it. But it was like you were saying last week. When you're getting started, though, the easiest way probably to sort of get a handle on how rigging and weight painting works is probably to send a nice T-posed avatar to Mixamo and then import it into here, and then look at how it's done. And then obviously that's not perfect, so there's going to be issues you're going to have to fix in here anyway, but it gives you a lot more of an idea. Like, I think you can do there's an auto skin function on the maximum, but I've never tried that one because it does take quite a while. So I just generally do the basic one on this one, and then just finish it manually, because it's probably just about as fast as doing it in Mixamo anyway now.
Can you bring in objects, say like props in the set?
Yes, that's one thing I have actually been playing with a little bit. I was just going to see if I could find one. I'm not sure if I've got it now. It may be in this one. There we go. This was when I was trying to animate my dinosaurs, so I could bring in I had the little default, where is he? The Unity VR chat avatar. Where has he gone here? As a just an example for size, because where I had one of the dinosaurs in here, I wanted to animate it to come down to here. And this is one thing I've requested in the Masterpiece Discord, is a way, because at the moment I haven't found any way that's possible to lock this object relative to the one that we're going to, say, animate as such. So what I'm saying with this is that if you were wanting to animate something, see, now I swapped to this one, but see, I can still scale him and he's not staying relative. Whereas what I'd really like to be able to do is to scale him to, say, this size, lock it so that they both stay relative, and then you could physically animate him walking up the stairs as such. And then that would apply too to then adding objects and interact, things you could carry with your avatar, like a backpack that you could bring in and attach to it after, which would be possible if you could lock it to the, or parent it to the armature layer. But as such, at this stage, I don't know if that's actually possible.
And do you have like, that's not scaling it, right? Is it the same, like, can you actually scale stuff once you're in here?
You mean, so when you export it, it's at a completely different scale? Well, from what I've experienced, no. I think all you're doing is it's just relative scale to what you're working on. Like if I was to export this building now, I think it would still be the same size as what the original was. Which is where I think if you were able to lock it or parent it to a layer so that it kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, bound it to. So if you scaled two separate objects and then connected them as such, and then so that they stayed relative to each other, that should then, I would have thought, technically adjust the scale so that they're both, in a parallel thing, and they're what's the word? They're working together well. Then, like they're at the correct scale for each other. But without that feature to lock them together, it's a little bit difficult at this stage. Like if I was to bring a backpack in, say for this character here, and then scale it, I don't think it would. You'd have to manually scale again in Unity when you attached it, probably. Whereas if they had the another cool feature would be like if you were to bring in an object you wanted to carry, say a handbag or a ball or something, and if you could attach it to or parent it to the armature, and then when you export it, it exported that as part of the FBX, which would be quite a cool feature as well. But as far as I know, that's not available yet. But definitely speed up that workflow though, instead of having to manually try and apply attachables in Unity, because it's so much easier doing it in a VR space, because you get that depth perception and that whole feel to it compared to on a 2D desktop screen. I'll just get rid of that.
Very cool, man.
Could I jump in with a question real quick?
Yeah.
There's an avatar that we're sort of playing around with, and imagine like what's a good example? Like a mermaid. If you had a character that really only has like a trunk, like a slug's body.
Yep.
And you wanted to pull that into VR chat, would you? I mean, so VR chat, the SDK in Unity only accepts humanoid rigs, right? So you'd have to like sort of give VR chat and Unity what they're looking for. So it would have to be a humanoid rig. But could you basically use the bone structure of a humanoid and then just weight paint those bottom legs and the pelvis like pretty much like non-responsive? I mean, would that be a way to do it?
Yeah, I think you probably could do it that way. There's probably a variety of ways you could do it. Like there's other ways you could even, which is sort of what I've been trying to experiment with lately. I haven't sort of had much progress this week, but there's a way where you can change the set animations in Unity for how the VR chat animator avatar walks. Like, for an example, I've been trying to set it up so that I can do this guy walking on tiptoes, like kind of like they do in the cartoon. So he sort of, instead of doing a standard walk, he does sort of like a really just tiptoes along, and that's a matter of setting up your animation in here using the animator feature, and then it would be I'm just still figuring out how then you can apply that animation to overwriting the standard Unity VR chat one. But if I was to, like what you were saying, is if you wanted to just unweight paint, say, the legs and just attach them to the pelvis, that's completely possible as well. And you could even just add dynamic bones to the ones in the, say, the tail, if that's what you were doing, so that they would kind of just have a little bit of movement as you went forward anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I mean, sometimes, like this avatar, I think I've got most of them are all weight painted to each other. But if for some reason I didn't want the shoulder here, I could just get rid of that and set this one here. This is pretty harsh, and so that way, even in VR chat, even though I haven't got that one like weight painted to anything, it's still part of the armature. So Unity's happy. Like it basically, what Unity has for its avatar setup is that it has to have the hips, which is the starting bone. Quite often I don't even have that weight painted to anything. I just start with the spine, and it has to have a chest, upper chest, and a neck and a head, and it needs those 5 bones basically in the vertebrae to the top of the head, because if it doesn't have those, that's when it starts getting issues. Like if your shoulder's not parented to the upper chest, it basically has a fit and it doesn't like it, and like it'll spit out all sorts of errors at you in Unity. And same as the hands and the fingers. If you have a shoulder missing, or just because sometimes depending on if you've named it correctly in here, it won't come up in Unity straight away. As long as you've got it there, that's fine, and you can just manually add it in Unity under the rig configure tab. But if you don't have a shoulder in the chain basically of the armature to the chest or the backbone, the hands and fingers basically won't work. It needs basically all the parts of the puzzle for it to work properly. But they don't have to be weight painted as such. Like you can get away with, I could actually literally have the forearm weight painted to the shoulder, as long as I've got those bones there. It would look funny how it moves, but it would still work. And that's the biggest thing with Unity. Yeah, it just needs that a specific set of, I guess, because it's running on the humanoid structure. Until we see them introduce some sort of a multi-limbed sort of a rig as well as standard, would be a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, because there's so many characters that conceivably could move that way, anything that has any sort of snake-like or slug-like creature is very far removed from what they're expecting, but I'm sure there'd be loads of people who are keen to give it a shot. Cool, thanks.
That's right. I've seen some cases where, say, if you had a horse and you wanted that as your avatar, I mean, this is not by no means probably the best way to do it, but it's a very primitive way if you wanted to do it, is basically attach the humanoid part to the front of the horse. So you down the front legs, head, the arms, you probably would just not even have them attached to anything or skin to anything, and then put your structure in and your back legs and just attach dynamic bones. That's how I've seen it done, but I mean, they just look like the back legs are sort of just flapping around, but it is kind of a way to basically simulate it a little bit if you cut for time or something.
Right.
Yeah, as a side note, with Avatar 3.0 is also possible, if you have a horse avatar, for example, to use sort of baked animations that can be detected by the avatar movements. It takes a little while to set up, but basically you can, for example, disable with Avatar 3.0, disable the movement of the lower legs and assign a baked animation that you prepared in beforehand
so you could
to move.
So essentially, if you animated, say, if you had a horse in here and you animated a walking cycle, you could then use that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. But you have to assign move forward, move backwards, move sideways,
Yes, you'd
etc.
have to
So
have
it
all
takes
the
more time.
yeah, and that's where I guess with the animate feature in here, it should be keyframing it all and each individual direction of movement, I guess, and crouching and all that.
Can you show us the animation a bit?
Yeah, okay. This one I've got a little bit of one I'd already when I was just playing around with them. So for animating, and these work brilliantly, and basically similar to Mixamo, how you can apply them in Unity and VR Chat as well. So this one, just if I click play, I'll just drag that back to the front. So you can set up your time here. This is a maximum of 5 seconds at the moment, but you're going to just adjust that out to however long you want. It's like 500 seconds, but you can see him there moving and rolling his eyes. It's more just testing to see what he can do. But so to do an animation, I'll just clear everything so we can start from scratch again. You can just have it set as the T pose, and so if you want to start it at a different one, so this is what I'll normally do I'll just reload the rig actually, just so that we've got a completely skinned one because I've already messed that up. Is a good idea if you're going to just do a looping animation for say an animated prop or something in your world, is then I would get your starting pose or whatever you want to set them up as, and then duplicate that and drag it right down the end of the your keyframe bar, so that when you finish your animation, it will then revert back into your starting, so you don't get that sudden judder of just chopping one animation and jumping back to the other end of it. And it's got the cool thing with this animate in this is the smooth transitions between. So I'll just delete all these. So we're back at the start. So we'll have him start with his hands down like this. And it's our first one, so we'll push insert pose, and that chucks in another one, which is exactly the same as one we just did. So I'll just drag that one right down the end, and we'll go here, click on this, and we'll push insert pose. And now we'll maybe make him putting his arm up to wave out. And it will have him looking as well. Maybe opening his mouth. If I just drag that a little bit further. So what happens now, if I just drag the slider between the two, it'll just smoothly transition between them. Or if I click play, where's play? And then it will slowly just go back to the other pose. It's at the other end, because I've dragged it way down, it'll go very slow. But that's just so I can end back at that point. Now, if you say you had wanted to make him walk somewhere, the easiest way to do that I've found is, okay, he's here now. We'll go down to about here, and we'll make him go. We'll insert a frame there. And where's the? Just zoom in a bit so I can see him. And we'll pick him up, and we'll make him go to here. So now if we go back to here, see he's just going to slide to that point. But this is where now you can just add in frames. So if we want to, okay, he starts there, we'll insert a pose there, and we want him to basically start lifting his leg to walk. And it's just so much easier in VR doing this, because it's literally just like playing with toys, picking their legs up, moving them around, reposing them. And we've got that one there. Okay, we need to swap that one over. So somehow I've got them mixed up. So that one goes there. And we'll just zoom in. We'll move him a little bit as though he's going in the direction. We'll try and... a trick that I've been using, because it's quite difficult if you're trying to make him walk on a flat surface to, stick to a surface. I just use the animation board and position it under the... Oh, where are we? There we go. I position it, line it up with these two, and then I can tell if he's going through the floor or not. Because without something rigid or a visual cue as such, I mean, before that, there is the other way you can try and line up the two lines here, but if you want him to walk upstairs, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Whereas as soon as you move him outside of the box, suddenly it's a lot harder. So this is where I quite often will use this. I'll put the front of the slider bar at where his feet is, so when I do the next frame, I know to keep that leg with the foot positioned at that same point, so that it doesn't give too much of a it gives a smooth transition basically from between your keyframes. But it's, at the moment, it's just, you've just got to work with what's there. But having the feature to bring in an object as such, like a building or even just a piece of ground or something you could animate him basically interacting with, and then lock it to that model would be quite a cool, a lot easier for animating specific static objects for specific parts of your worlds. Any other questions about the animation process?
Can you change the curves? Like the smoothing curves?
I'm not sure. Like, I don't think you can actually change the smoothing curves, but like it really just depends on how much like the distance between as to how smooth it'll move. But
I mean the ease in and ease out. Do they have anything like that?
off where it starts doing the transitioning to the next frame.
No, just like the ease in, ease out is when like it starts off fast, but then it slows down when it gets to a certain point.
No,
I guess you just manually have to set that all up.
manually have to set that up. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can do that in Unity after. I haven't really played with it because I've sort of just done it manually as such. So like you can zoom like at the moment. So this is a total of, what was it, 5 seconds of this entire bar. But if I wanted to add a lot more tighter time frames in here, like I don't know how close this is going to be, but I'd say this is going to be quite short time frames. Like I'll just do this as a bit of a test, and I'll go for another one. Insert pose, and now we'll go back and play that. See, that was really fast. It was almost hard to see because of how quick those frames were. If that's 5 seconds, they're probably like almost hundredths of a second. With 1 second will be somewhere here. So yeah, that split second. So if you want movements like eyes twitching or things like that, you just have to add them in with the keyframes, I guess. Any other questions? So I think I'm pretty much, unless there's something else specific to cover, I'm not sure where else I can really go now.
Lawless, if that was you trying to ask a question, your mic's not working. That's super cool.
Yeah,
Can
very
you
nice.
can you create like in this animator, can you create different animations? So be like, okay, cool, walk sequence, build that out,
Yep.
keep that on file.
Yep. So under here you can add different takes. So if I was to do, this one is like a walking forward one, and then that would be animation 1. So then I'd go here and then add another take. And this is where I think you can name them here. So you should be able to. The naming box disappeared, but I'm not sure where that's gone. It's just disappeared completely. I get no menu.
It's VR. It's behind you.
yeah. No. There it is, way over there. I don't know how to get that back. The keyboard's across the other side of the room. Okay, that must be a bug. So don't try and name them at this point. But yeah, so when you add it, I'll have to quit this. I can't get my menu back. So when you're in Unity, when you're at the what do you call it? When you open up your FBX, like you sort of will see if it's got any animations. It'll say take 1, take 2, and if you were wanting to drop those in as part of the walking sequence, like one of you was talking about before, you just, as long as you know if you can rename them, or at least know what the number of the sequence was for walking forward, walking back, you can then just do them all on the one FBX and just drop the individual sequences into the applicable places in Unity.
Super cool.
I don't know what this blue... I've never seen that before. I'll just have to shut this down, I think, because it's quite...
The teleporter.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it.